be able to generate recurring income. And again, that income is so we can support the issuance of our prefs, to be able to support the purchase of more Bitcoin, to be able to increase our Bitcoin per share sustainably over time.
Yeah, I think touching on the volatility component a little further, we just issued Mercury, which is our convertible perpetual preferred, which is a mouthful, but to kind of break it down, essentially it's a bond or a fixed income like instrument, which are usually very low volatility, boring instruments, and we're combining that with a 10-year call option on Metaplanet stock. Right, so you can think about it like it's sort of like a $200,000 Bitcoin call option combined with a bond, right? And there's no in the world you can buy a $200,000 call option on Bitcoin for 2035, right? And so about 2 weeks ago when we announced this deal, market conditions were quite bad. Bitcoin had fallen from $100,000 to about $80,000 in the span of a couple weeks. Sentiment was terrible. The kind of operating companies that were in the Bitcoin landscape were facing a lot of pressure. And we raised about 150 million, which, depending on who you are, it may sound like a lot. It might sound like not a lot relative to maybe the 3 billion we raised so far this year. But I think it was a strong signal for us that there is real strong demand for Bitcoin-backed instruments, and there is really strong demand for a kind of a Bitcoin native call option in an operating wrapper, right? And so maybe we can provide some color on the institutional dialogue we've had, maybe the pros and the cons. How has that transpired over the last 12 months for us, but also just the landscape more broadly?
So we've had the good fortune now over the past 6 to 8 weeks to really meet some of the biggest pools of capital in the world. We completed a public offering about 2 months ago. It was a secondary offering, a follow-on offering, and then about 2 weeks ago we closed a pre-IPO of our perpetual preferreds. So we spoke, I think, to about 100 investors in about 10 different cities. It was quite the affair, traveling from city to city, difficult being away from home. But we were in the room with some large pools of capital talking about a wide-ranging sort of scope of topics. But I think the one big takeaway for me is that a lot of these pools of capital now have made the effort to go out and find individuals who understand Bitcoin. And so the difference to 4 years ago is when you had a discussion with a potential investor, traditional investor, Bitcoin was something that they wouldn't touch. It was something that was dirty. It was only used by terrorists and whatever else you can think of to describe Bitcoin. But now it's completely different. And often there's a person in the room from a country like Venezuela, a country that really understands the value of Bitcoin. And so the discussions are very interesting and very different to what they were years ago. But what I would say is there now is substantial interest from institutional investors in Bitcoin. Up until now, there wasn't really a way to play that story. Investors still can't buy Bitcoin generally for their funds or for their balance sheets, and so a digital equity like a Metaplanet or a strategy is now something that resonates really, really well with them. And so I think we're very excited about the future of Bitcoin, how it's become very normalized among the institutional investor base. We're very pleased as a company that there has been substantial interest in Metaplanet. Of course, there are lots of Bitcoin treasury companies out there, and we want to encourage as many companies around the world to add Bitcoin to their balance sheet. But the name of the game now is you need to have a substantial balance sheet. You can't use equity issuance as your sole source of capital raising. You need to have more tools in your capital market toolkit, and digital credit is that next phase. Companies that can issue digital credit are those that have substantial digital capital, and the future will be seeing other ways that companies like ours can raise money. Our focus, as I said earlier, is being able to generate sustainable revenue. Sustainable revenue can support the prefs, and that enables this flywheel to continue.
Maybe some color on the Japanese landscape for Bitcoin adoption. Where is that relative to the U.S. or the rest of the world? Is that an opportunity? Is that a bullish or bearish for us? Has that changed in the last 18 months? For someone that isn't familiar with Japan and that landscape.
Sure. So, Japan was actually really early to Bitcoin. And so all of the Bitcoin movers and shakers, CZ of Binance, Roger Ver, they were all in Tokyo at that time, talking about the laurels of Bitcoin. If you were lucky enough to be in a bar with Roger Ver back then he would have gifted you some Bitcoin. We then had an unfortunate hack on Mt. Gox, which set Japan back by many, many years. The regulator came in, clamped down, really focused on protecting users and investors, but it never banned Bitcoin like many other countries have. And so we're now in an environment where Japan is probably 3-4 years behind the US. Japan looks fondly towards the US as the innovator, and Japan is now following in the US footsteps. So now we have a stablecoin, JPYC, which was launched just a short while ago. And so Japan really is moving in the right direction. Bitcoin itself is still not a financial asset, so it's in this bit of a strange no man's land. And so that's one of the benefits that we had as Metaplanet, that we became the most efficient way for Japanese retail investors to get exposure to Bitcoin in a tax-efficient manner. Now, we expect over the next year or so that Bitcoin will become a financial asset. The opportunity, the Bitcoin world will expand. More companies will be able to invest in Bitcoin because it will be more normalized. And Metaplanet, we stand at the center of that. We are the company in Japan with the largest amount of Bitcoin. We have 92% of all the Bitcoin held by corporations in Japan. We own the bitcoin.jp domain. We look forward to hosting this Bitcoin conference in Japan in 2027. We hope that all of you are there to visit us and experience Bitcoin on the ground. We have shareholder meetings in Japan, which are sort of like rock concerts. We have thousands of people that attend. And so we're very excited to be at the center of the Bitcoin ecosystem in Japan. It's really just the first chapter in a long journey, and we're really looking forward to the coming days, months, and years ahead.
One of the kind of the talking points or thing that's making the rounds the past few months is there's a lot of expectation for high price targets, the 4-year cycle, and instead Bitcoin dipped from about 120 to 80. Has that shaken Metaplanet's conviction? How are we dealing with this? Of course, I know the answer, but we get plenty of emails and inbound IR inquiries of, are we panicking? Are we going to sell Bitcoin? How are you thinking about this as kind of at the helm of the ship?
I mean, it's great to be on a Bitcoin standard because that is your hurdle rate. And so, of course, we want Bitcoin price to be higher, and we want our share price to perform well. But those are things that we can't control. We can't control Bitcoin price. We can't control our own stock price. What we can control is doing everything we can to accumulate more and more Bitcoin over time. I'm often asked, what is the one thing that worries me the most? And I like to joke and say, it's that Bitcoin, I wake up in the morning, the Bitcoin price is much higher. I'm afraid that we don't own enough Bitcoin yet. We have to do our best to chase the leader strategy. And the gap between them and everyone else is just beginning to expand. But I think that we do have a very good opportunity in Japan to do our best to catch up. We have a very special moat in Japan. We're the only Bitcoin treasury company in Japan. As I said earlier, we have the majority of the Bitcoin held by corporations. We're in an environment with a very low cost of capital. And so our cost to issue our preferreds will be the lowest in the world. We'll be able to use that capital to buy Bitcoin. And so we'll be able to capture more of that spread between our cost of capital and the compound annual growth rate of Bitcoin over time. Strategy has now set the standard for the rate that must be paid for a Bitcoin-backed security. I think any other company that comes after Strategy in the US that issues similar security in US dollars will have to contend with Strategy as being the risk-free rate, and will have to issue at a higher yield. But we're lucky. We're in Japan. We're completely devoid from that comparison, and we'll be able to compete against the issuers of fixed income instruments in Japan. And those issuers of fixed income instruments in Japan are offering a yield which is far lower than we seek to offer in Japan. And so that is the big opportunity for Metaplanet as a company. I think we're strategically positioned really, really well. And 2026, I'm fully expecting to be a very exciting year for Bitcoin and for Metaplanet.
So we got about 3 minutes left. Maybe we can end on kind of a similar note. We've often described this as a digital gold rush. And as you know, in the gold rush, there's a few winners. One winner is who accumulates all the gold. Another way to win is selling picks and shovels. What is the plan regarding selling the picks and shovels? And maybe there's a call to action to potential partners, service providers in the international or domestic Bitcoin and broadly digital asset community.
So I did share that we are the Bitcoin company in Japan. We now have 212,000 individual Japanese shareholders, and that actually makes us one of the most held stocks in Japan. Many other companies in Japan have, say, a crypto exchange or they own a securities firm, yet they have fewer shareholders than we do. And so somehow we've managed to capture the hearts and minds of the Japanese retail investor. Many of them didn't know about Bitcoin before they bought our stock. And when they come to our shareholder meeting, which has thousands of people, they get to connect with others that are on this journey together. And so I think we do have that opportunity to do a business in the picks and shovels. People are already reaching out to us and asking us how to do all the things that we're doing. And these are people that we can service. The call to action, I suppose, is if you have a business anywhere in the world and you would like to target Metaplanet shareholders, you'd like to offer our shareholders something of value, that is something that we would be happy to facilitate. We do want our Japanese shareholders and our shareholders from around the world to be on this journey together with us, to see all the possible options that Bitcoin really has to offer. And we stand really at a very unique position in Japan to capitalize on that.
Very nice. Well, looks like we got some time added. What haven't we touched on? Anything we missed?
No. Normally they're kicking you off the stage, but now they give us more time so we can stay for longer.
We're doing so well. Well, I guess, I don't know. I don't have anything else.
Any questions from the audience?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So the question is, what is the strategy, regarding our stock and the relative valuation of our common stock? So at a 1x MNAV, or traditional terms price to book, the strategy changes, right? And so the simple math is, if you issue common stock at a premium to your book value, you can increase Bitcoin per share. And we've done that to a great extent this year. Our Bitcoin per share has increased 6x, 500% year to date. But as you noted, if price to book or MNAV is below 1, then selling equity is destructive to Bitcoin per share. And so in that sense, the preferred equity is a really powerful tool, right? And so this allows preferred equity is completely uncorrelated to your MNAV or your price to book in terms of your valuation, right? And so we're looking at the preferreds as a way to kind of diversify or have a different tool in our toolkit to be able to capital raise and acquire more Bitcoin regardless of the market condition. And I think that's what Michael Saylor has shown so well over the last year, is having different tools regarding different circumstances. And so our vision is we're going to have our common equity tool, and that will be a very valuable, strong tool for us. But if the equity markets aren't enthusiastic, then we can really lean on these fixed income instruments. And we want these to be liquid, we want these to be listed. And so that's our vision. And it's something that hasn't been done before in Japan. It's something that hadn't been done anywhere in the world until about 10 months ago. But that's what we're pretty laser focused on going into 2026. Well, sure. 30 seconds left. Yeah, so the question is regarding stock buybacks. We have a $500 million authorization for share buybacks. It's a tool for us, it's an option. Ultimately, as an operating company, you want to have optionality, right? So you never want to be boxed into a corner about what you can or can't do. And so if the market's dumb enough to send our stock to prices that are ridiculously cheap, we could buy back stock, and we will. But ultimately, we're really excited about accumulating Bitcoin, and that's what we're pretty focused on now.
Well, thank you all for being here, and thank you for your support of Metaplanet. you.